And it says we are now live. So.
Okay. Make sure my door is locked so my phone.
All right, it looks like it is 12:46 Eastern, so why don't we get started? Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're located. Welcome to providing a safe and healthy environment that helps improve student achievement, teacher effectiveness, and stakeholder engagement. Today, you're joined by Stacy Summerhill, who's the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction at Eagle Mount Saginaw in Fort Worth, Texas. And I'm Dave Kavlik. I'm the Vice President of K-12 Solutions for Crisis Go, and I am based in Charleston, South Carolina. Our organization is based in St. Louis, Missouri. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Stacy. And Stacy, you can get started.
Okay, very good. We are happy to be here with you today and excited that you are joining us virtually. And we are here to talk to you just about the importance of planning, and as you are trying to become a Blue Ribbon School of Excellence, and some of you may already have been noted for that, so congratulations if you're a part of that group as well. In my role currently as Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction in Eagle Mountain Saginaw, I've had the opportunity to be a part of a very big planning piece. And one of our planning pieces is the importance of developing our strategic plan. And in our strategic plan, a lot of collaboration has to go into that. And you're really depending on that piece of developing a vision. And in my role, I find that in planning with that vision is so important to go beyond the academics, because there's so many things, and yes, that's coming from a curriculum person, and there's so many things that have to take place before the learning and the delivery of curriculum and the instructional piece can even take place in the classroom. And so that's why I fully believe in the work and the resources associated with Crisis Go. And I've had the opportunity to utilize this resource in my district, and the society that we live in today, sadly, has caused educators just to deal with situations that really we never had hoped that we would have to deal with. It's definitely put us in situations that we do not want to have to deal with, but we have. And so, and now even in the world of COVID now, you think back, it seems like so long ago that it started, but just the things that we now have to deal with in our our planning piece. It's just added a whole new level of what we have to do before the instruction can even take place. So part of that is the importance of planning. And so you have that vision piece, and this quote kind of summarizes that you're bringing the future into the present so you can do something about it now, because we can't stay in that reactive mode whenever we're waiting. You can't wait for something to happen, because that will definitely catch us off guard. And so I will give a huge amount of credit to Eagle Mountain Saginaw, because we are definitely a district, and our superintendent, Dr. Chadwell, who's a board member at Blue Ribbon, is definitely one of his greatest strengths is his role in leadership with strategic planning. And strategic planning, think about what that is. And definitely it's based on developing that clear vision for your district and your organization. It's having that set of clear objectives. And it doesn't just stop there. Then you go on and you develop those strategies. How are you going to achieve those things as a district? And then what are the action steps? You get even more specific as you drill down to what does that look like to help you accomplish those end goals and those end objectives, and what will those outcomes look like? So I always kind of think about, well, what is it not? What it's not is just a document that's created. I know we're trying to all move away from paper, so it's not just a Word document that you store somewhere or people have access to, and it just sits there. It is something that really needs to constantly be revisited and constantly be looked at, and that it's real, and that people in the organization know what that document is, and they live by it, and it should definitely be something that reflects the beliefs and the vision of what the organization and district represents. And so the planning piece is so important, and when you're thinking ahead to how do I prepare as a district for the things that we unfortunately could have to face at any given time. And so that is a very important piece of what we've done as a district, is that strategic planning. And as we've done that, we have something in our district that's called Aspire 2022. And I came to our district in November 2012, and it had been developed shortly before I arrived in the district. And we completed that, the goals and all those pieces early. And it was a 10-year plan. And even 10 years ago, an important piece in that document involved a piece that dealt with not just the academic, but then the social and emotional pieces of developing plans for students. And so you think about that 10 years ago, the vision of the leaders and the members who were all involved in putting that plan together had that vision then to think about the social and emotional piece for students and how relevant that is now. And so a part of our planning process in that strategic plan is we came back together kind of midway through, and we revised and we revisited that. And we developed rubrics and measurable points where we really looked at where are we? Where are we in accomplishing the things that we set out in that plan? And so definitely when you're developing your planning piece in your strategic plan, you definitely want to make sure that you're collaborating, you're bringing in those key stakeholders to be a part, and that also includes those community members, board members, people who have an active voice, because the more people that input in this document, it just makes it more active and live. And it's something that you live by, and it's not just a document. And then communicating that how important it is to your district. And that is something that we do on a regular basis in our leadership meetings and all those kind of things where we come together. Definitely, you could not work in our organization and not know what our strategic plan was or is. And so where we are now is that we have completed the goals set out in our original plan, and we have now just wrapping up completing a new strategic plan called Aspire 2025. And we have a whole, it's a 5-year plan now, and it has a whole new piece and a pillar of what just dealing with social and emotional support. And it has become such an important role, as you see. If you think back, if you've heard about Abraham Maslow's theory, his hierarchy of needs, if you go back back in the 1940s, and one of those one of the 5 basic needs that he addressed in that, obviously we have to have our basic needs taken care of, our air, our food, our water, our clothing, our shelter. But one of those basic needs that we need as people and humans is that we need to feel safe. And that is so important. And for the academic piece, which I live by in my role, the major piece is learning cannot take place. Instruction cannot take place. Student achievement cannot happen if our students do not feel safe in that learning environment. And so as our teachers are working so hard to design, develop, implement the very best lessons that they can, if our students are not in a safe learning environment and have the things in place in the campus culture, then the best design lessons are really irrelevant. And so for a curriculum and instruction person who is retiring in just a couple weeks and supporting the work of Crisis Go, I wholeheartedly believe in the importance of planning and providing that safe environment for our students. And so that piece is so important. And you, as a valuable member in your organization, is keeping that at the front, keeping that as the forefront in developing a strong foundation that's so important in your organization. And also, as you are planning and keeping the importance of that target of excellence in your mind, I know many of you are here because you are thinking about what it takes to become a Blue Ribbon school as well. And so I'm going to pass this over to Dave so he can talk to you about how components of Crisis Go align directly with Blue Ribbon's categories as well.
Thank you, Stacy. And I have to say I'm extremely jealous. I've been in the education space for over 30 years, and had I gone the education route instead of the sales route, I would be retiring today too. So I wish that were the case. If I could do it all over again, I would certainly be in the classroom. So as I start out with this next session or section of this presentation, we're going to be looking at how can Crisis Go help your schools meet the not all, but some of the 9 categories for success as part of the Blue Ribbon process. And before I get into that, I want to try to paint a picture for you from a situation that really changed my life forever in my career. I've spent my entire career providing academic solutions to schools across the country. I've worked for textbook publishers. I've worked for reading intervention companies. I've worked for technology companies. And, through that, I've always been on the academic side of K-12 sales and support. And 5 years ago, I was working for a global organization that provided a variety of academic solutions to K-12 schools. And on a particular day, I had a meeting scheduled with a principal in Alabama who also happens to be part of the Blue Ribbon family. As I walked in the building, the receptionist asked me to just have a seat in the principal's office and that she'd be with me shortly. And as I was sitting in the office by myself, which was probably the first time I had ever been in a principal's office by myself, usually when I was there was the principal was there, as well as maybe some other people that may have been angry with me or for whatever reason. But anyway, so as I sat waiting, I couldn't help but notice all the photographs across the back of her desk with her family. There were pictures of her students, present and past. Coffee mugs were there, world's greatest teacher, world's greatest mom, world's greatest principal. And it just lined her office with all of these things that, dealt with her entire life from work to home. And I can remember thinking to myself, how cool, how important this was that her students and her family all seemed to be interwoven into her life. And I'm sure that many of you feel the same way about your students and your home life. And as I was sitting there, I then looked at my watch and noticed that I had been sitting in her office waiting for her for at least 20 minutes, and she still wasn't there. And then all of a sudden, she walked through the door. She had a Kleenex in her hand, and she was wiping tears away from her face. And I immediately asked her if everything was okay and if we needed to reschedule. And it was at that instant, once this happened, this is where everything changed. You see, as an academic sales consultant, I was always under the impression that the only thing that mattered were the things that I was selling that were academic. I thought that that was all that helped to improve student achievement and teacher effectiveness. And as the principal shared with me, the reason she was crying is that they had just had an active shooter drill. And had it been an actual crisis, they would have lost 3 students and 2 staff members. And I immediately got goosebumps. In fact, I'm telling this story and I have them right now. It was an impression that was made on me that I don't think I will ever forget. And the reason is, we spent the next 30 minutes talking about how important it is providing a safe and nurturing environment for students to allow them to experience the learning process. And if they're not safe and secure when they go to school, how is anything going to help them? The other piece is that, unbeknownst to me, 4 years later, I would join an organization like Crisis Go. And I had no idea. If you would have told me 30 years ago when I started my career that I would be working with schools on safety and security and providing things around active shooter and threat assessments and, COVID-19 health screening, I would have bet the house that would have never happened. But I share the story for 2 reasons. First of it highlights the fact that for most of my career, I lived in what I would call an academic bubble. I really never looked outside of what I was doing in my life to say, there's more to the education process than just curriculum or just the academic side of things. And then secondly, as you're going to see here shortly, with Blue Ribbon and Crisis Go, our partnership, you'll see firsthand how important climate and safety are to the education process. So, I wanted to set that up for you because this is something for me, just because of this incident that at that time was very personal to me for whatever reason. It hit me in a way that nothing in my career has ever really hit me. And now that I'm involved in it on a day-to-day basis, it's great to know that we're doing good and we're providing the tools that are needed. So now as I move on to this and get off of that piece, there's 9 categories within the Blue Ribbon categories for success. So, as Stacy discussed, strategic planning and knowing where you're going as a school community is crucial. And you have to include it in all aspects of education. So any of you who have gone through the Blue Ribbon assessment know firsthand the importance of these 9 categories. And over the next 15 minutes or so, I will show you and, really try to paint a picture as to how we fit into these categories and how they can help you not only make your school a safe and secure place, but also help you in the Blue Ribbon categories for success. So we've got, student focus, leadership, educational vitality, school organization and culture, technology integration, then school, family, and community partners. These are really the areas that Crisis Go and Blue Ribbon have a very strong overlap. And I'll go through these for those of you who may not know what these are. And I just highlighted in yellow the pertinent pieces to what we'll be showing you. But, student focus and support, examples of participation rates in programs and services provided evidence that the school is committed to doing whatever it takes to ensure student success. Now, again, student success can be measured on a variety of levels. It could be everything from, how they do on high stakes testing to how they interact with their peers, how they interact with teachers. Any of those things can be aligned in those fashions. Leadership and educational vitality, the leadership engages the school and community in continuous school improvement focused on student learning and based on vision, data, knowledge of research, effective practices, and continuous monitoring and assessment. So again, Crisis Go has the tools to help you meet these types of goals as well. The school organization and culture, a healthy peer climate among students, and the existence of a safe, positive environment demonstrate that its school is focused on welfare and continuous achievement of all students and staff. Out of all 5 of these, this is probably the one that aligns 100% with what we do. And I'll show you that in just a few slides here. Technology integration, again, basic operations and concepts, social, ethical, and human issues. We deal with that on a daily basis within the Crisis Go platform, as well as the productivity tools and communication tools, as you'll see. Family and community, we all know how important family and community is. And this is, this particular category shows a pattern of actions taken by the school that demonstrates the commitment to and recognition of important roles that family, partnerships, and community play in learning. Services that meet the needs of families, parents, conferences, meeting schedules that facilitate participation, promoting two-way communication that help in the education process. Again, mass communication, survey questions, all of those things sort of fit into this area. So who is Crisis Go? So we've been in business now since 2013. We have over 16,000 schools that we have partnered with. We are in every state, and we have offices in Missouri and in California. The members of our executive team, we have over 90 years of experience in K-12 technology as well as school safety. The platform itself can be used on Wi-Fi or phone, 3G, 4G, 5G. And where are we different? So, Crisis Go, we are not just a mass communication organization. We have the solutions for COVID-19 health screening, contact tracing, emergency management, crisis alerting, anonymous tip reporting, behavioral threat assessment, case management, virtual web-based crisis training. So we really wrap all of this into what we do on a daily basis. And it's all under one platform, and it can be, you can pick and choose what fits your specific needs. So the first piece, I know Stacy mentioned COVID-19. COVID-19 is at the top of everybody's mind right now. From personal standpoint, you hope that you and your loved ones don't contract it. But then from an education standpoint, what type of model are we using? Are we virtual? Are we blended? Are we 100% in person? And because of that, we did a crowdsourcing project back in March, and we met with over 300 different education leaders from across the country to find out what they felt the pain points were going to be as schools returned in the summer or fall. And basically it was, how are we going to monitor and maintain what's happening with the students' health? How are we going to ensure that those kids coming to school and those staff members coming to work are healthy? How are we going to, if someone does come to school sick, how are we going to, trace back who they came into contact with? So all of these things were presented to us, and we literally, as a and we're basically a software development company that deals in this market. And we pivoted and we came up with Safety iPass, which is really, it started out as a school entry program. As you can see here on the screen, a QR code is assigned to every student, and based on the answers they give to CDC questions, it determines if they are permitted to come to school or not. So through this entry badge platform, we look at it and, basically, so you've got these 5 colors. A green means that the students are safe to come to school. Red means that they're quarantined. Yellow could be a visitor badge. It could be someone who is at risk. Remote, those of you that might be on a blended model right now, parents aren't going to be required to have to remember what day their students go to school. Are they remote today? Are they not remote today? So when they answer their questions, their response back from our system will be, your student is working remote today, and it will give you a blue code. The gray or uncertified are those students who have not yet certified themselves, and you can do that at school or you can do it virtually. And basically the way it works is the school district sends out an email to all of your stakeholders, your parents. They answer these simple CDC questions. In this case, my child meets the criteria and will go to school today. No symptoms. Once they hit certify, the student's badge comes up and they can then be scanned into the building as they enter, or you can just show the badge. You can also use a QR code printed out on a backpack, laminated card. So there are a variety of ways to do that. You can also scan a QR code from a school roster to check it as well. The latest piece we've added is the close contact tracing. And we had a webinar yesterday with one of our schools in New York that is using the contact tracing at a high school. And the issue they were having was that, once a student leaves their cohort classroom, if you will, and goes to the cafeteria or to the media center or goes to the gymnasium or wherever they're going, how do you know, once they leave their classrooms, how do you know where they've been? And if they've become, COVID positive or come into contact with someone, how do you know who else has come into contact with them? So what we've done is through the contact tracing, it's tied to your student information system to see who's in which classes, who had which teachers. But then we took it one step further, and as students leave their classrooms, they scan in and out of the rooms they're going into. So they scan into the cafeteria, they scan out of the cafeteria, into the gymnasium, out of the gymnasium, and they're all date and time stamped. So you would know at any given time which students or staff members were in close contact with one another and may need to be quarantined. So that's how this is morphed over the past 4 months. We started out just as a screening tool, and we are now to the point where we're doing contact tracing. The biggest piece of this entire platform that administrators love is our data collection tool. And this gives administrators a look of your entire district as to how many students were at risk or quarantined today, how many are on campus, how many are working remotely. And you can look at trends over time. So you can look at by school and know, rather than having to shut down the entire district, you could just pick and choose the schools that are at the highest risk. So these are some things that, that we have districts that look at this platform strictly because of this data collection and how they can really monitor the health and wellness of the staff and students. So the next piece, aside from, go ahead, do you have a question? No questions? Okay. The next component to our platform is our One Place to Warn, and this is really where this is where we started. This was the start of Crisis Go, and this is an app that is used directly for warning staff, students about any kind of emergency within a building. And as you look at, um, uh, the section of the blue ribbon categories around the organization and culture, this is a important piece to fitting into that piece of the 9 categories. And this allows you to identify, if you have an active shooter, God forbid, on your campus, or if there's a fire, or if there's some kind of medical emergency. This is where the information is disseminated from using this app. Your staff can also use it if there's an incident in the classroom. If there's a medical emergency in the classroom, they can call for help from their phone or their computer, which automatically puts them in touch with law enforcement, fire or EMS personnel, along with your school resource officers. It also has GPS enabled so that you can know exactly where they're at during a crisis. The Direct 911 component allows you, as you're calling 911, our platform is sending all the data to the desktop computer of the 911 center, so that when that call comes in, that data is already on their screen, and they can, they know ahead of time, before you're even talking to them, where you're at, what the location is, what the issue is. So that's, a tool that just allows you to speed up the process of getting help. You can also use it for important things, not just crises. It could be anything. It could be a flood, severe weather, any kind of injuries, where it doesn't necessarily require a lockdown or anything along those lines, but it's still something important enough that people need to be notified. It allows you to communicate these as well. And then the final piece is the reporting component. This is where you would have your bully incident reporting, threats of violence or harm to one another, weapons on campus, drugs, alcohol, assaults or fights. And this allows the staff to communicate amongst one another, to create these message groups around any of these types of incidences. As we get into, so we've already looked at Safety iPass, which is your health and wellness. We just looked at the crisis alert system. And this next component is probably one of the most important pieces that we're seeing right now around student mental health, student emotional, social emotional learning, behavioral health, threat assessment. All of those components fit into this. And with COVID, we all know that things are different in schools right now. From what we're hearing with those schools that are virtual, the bullying, cyberbullying, behavioral issues are at an all-time high compared to when people were face-to-face. And so this is where, we really are making a huge difference right now in schools across the country with our case management tool. And what this does is it allows you to work within your school safety teams, your threat assessment teams. Many states, I know Texas has a Senate Bill 11, which is a mandate around having threat assessment teams in place. There are several other states that are looking at doing the same thing. And it is a nationwide crisis right now, to be honest. So what this does, this tool allows you to communicate amongst your school safety team members, your assessment team members. The risk reports can be sent on any device back and forth. You can instantly notify anybody about a threat. You can also escalate it to outside agencies. So if there is a threat of harm to one another, you can alert the police. If it's a drug or alcohol, you can, again, police. If it's a attempted suicide or something like that, you can tie in your mental health folks. And we also are working with just about any threat assessment plan that's out there. If it's the Dewey Cornell, if it's the Virginia model, if it's the Columbia suicide risk assessment, any of those tools completely become digitized on our platform and allows you to communicate directly with your team members. So the way this would start, just as a quick overview, is that, an assessment, need for assessment comes in, it's started, it then gets assigned to the appropriate team members. So you may have team members for attempted suicide, you may have team members for weapons or fights, you may have team members that are tied directly to mental health issues. So as a threat comes in, it then gets assigned to the appropriate team members. It gets launched, and everybody then does their investigation. They do their due diligence to get the answers to what was going on, get the help for the student or students that are involved, and then they close it out. And then after that, there is a student assessment plan that's attached, very similar to an IEP, but it's all around the mental health of that student. And it allows you to communicate with their parents, their guardians, any outside agencies that they might be in touch with. If they, if they have a mental health professional they work with, you can tie them into this as well. And it's really just trying to keep those checks and balances on the student post-assessment, so that, it's one thing to do the assessment and get them, get that taken care of. But from that point forward, we need to give that student the support so that they can move on and, get to where they want to be and need to be, and put the other piece behind them, and to get them the help they need. As I mentioned, the threats can be escalated. So, if a threat report comes into Lincoln Junior High School, you can escalate it to any outside agency or those people internally. Again, just speeding up the situation, speeding it up so that they can, it can be taken care of quickly. As part of this, we have a student app, which is free. I think you can go online and just sign up for it. Your students can use it. I believe it's a free component. It's called Safe to Speak Up. And this integrates with everything that I've already shown you. It integrates with that so that your students can, have a way to communicate back and forth with administrators for anything related to their safety or bullying, anything they want to report anonymously. It's all done through the Safe to Speak Up app. And then the last piece is really our risk assessment audits. These are more of the operation side of things, but we can come in and work with your schools on, again, planning and looking at those things that could be a problem down the road. And it all ties back to many of the components within the Blue Ribbon assessment. It's all those things that are not academic, but they're still very important to what happens on a daily basis in your schools. And then these are just some final quotes from some of the customers that we work with. And this is Long Branch High School. They're based out of Long Branch, New Jersey, I believe is the town. Greatest attribute of Crisis Go is the fact that everybody, and I can't stress that enough, from the superintendent to a cook in the kitchen to our facility staff, has the same authority, ability, and knowledge to activate an alert to save lives. So, this becomes it's not just a teacher or student or administrator thing within a building. It's the entire community. It's that whole school community. It's everybody that works for the organization, that's tied to the organization. We all have to work in tandem to allow us to give the students the peace of mind and well-being that everything's gonna be okay. When you're in school, things are good, and that's where we need to get to. And this can really help you do that. This is one final piece here from a district in El Paso, Texas. The Crisis Go app creates a campus culture of safety. We're on the lookout for things that are unusual or things that may be potential threats to our campus and our students. So again, not a major statement, but it still talks to how we are helping them. And we have schools that are all over the place. on how they use us and what they use. But the important piece is that they're working to use whatever they need to make it a safe environment for their students. So with that, I think that wraps my piece up. Stacy, do we have any questions?
I don't see any.
All right, very good. Then we will end the broadcast, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, Allison.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.